I wasn't looking for impossible architecture when I started researching the 1904 Louisiana Purchase Exposition in St. Louis. I was examining old fairground photographs, the kind of casual historical browsing you do on a Sunday afternoon, when something stopped me cold. A night photograph. The entire exposition glowed. Not a few buildings with primitive electric lights strung between posts, not flickering gas lamps creating pools of yellow illumination. The entire 1,200-acre site blazed with electric light, so comprehensive, so uniform, so impossibly sophisticated that it looked like a photograph taken yesterday, not 120 years ago. And this was 1904. This was St. Louis, a city that just 40 years earlier was recovering from Civil War devastation. Electric lighting, we're told, was still experimental, expensive, limited to wealthy urban centers. The technology was in its infancy. Maybe, but the deeper I looked at these photographs, the more that simple explanation began to collapse under the weight of what these images actually show. Let me be specific about what these photographs depict. The 1904 Louisiana Purchase Exposition covered 1,200 acres. That's nearly twice the size of the entire downtown district of modern St. Louis. The main exhibition palaces alone contained over 100,000 arc lamps and incandescent bulbs. We're not talking about a few showcase buildings with electric novelties. We're talking about comprehensive, uniform, citywide illumination. In 1904, the Palace of Electricity, the centerpiece of the fair's technological displays, generated enough power to illuminate not just itself, but the entire exposition grounds. Contemporary accounts describe it as producing more electrical power than had ever been concentrated in a single location anywhere on Earth. The Palace of Machinery, covering 500,000 square feet, operated hundreds of electrical motors simultaneously, demonstrating industrial applications that wouldn't become common in American factories for another 20 years. The Grand Basin, an artificial lagoon at the heart of the exposition, featured underwater lighting systems that transformed it into what newspapers called a lake of liquid light. The cascades, the fountains, the walkways, the bridges, everything illuminated with a precision and uniformity that seems impossible for the era. And here's the strangest part. This wasn't a permanent installation. This was a temporary exhibition, built in under 2 years, designed to operate for 7 months, then demolished, systematically, completely, returned to empty parkland as if it had never existed. But while it stood, it glowed like nothing else on Earth. Once you see it, you can't unsee it. The official history tells us that large-scale electrical systems were new, expensive, experimental in 1904. Edison's Pearl Street Station, the first commercial power plant, had opened just 22 years earlier in New York, serving 85 customers within 1 square mile. 22 years later, the St. Louis Fair illuminated 1,200 acres with over 100,000 lights. Does that timeline make sense to you? Because it gets more complicated. These weren't just lights strung on existing infrastructure. The photographs show comprehensive, sophisticated electrical systems. Every building, every walkway, every fountain, every sculpture, bathed in uniform light. The infrastructure required is staggering. Power generation facilities, distribution networks, thousands of miles of wiring, transformers, junction boxes, switching stations, maintenance systems, all for a temporary fair, all built in under 2 years, all dismantled and destroyed immediately afterward. Consider what we're actually being asked to accept here. In an era when most American cities had limited or no electric street lighting, when residential electrification was almost non-existent, when the technology was prohibitively expensive, during this precise moment, organizers somehow mustered the resources, expertise, and coordination to create the most sophisticated lighting system the world had ever seen. Not in a permanent installation for a major city, in a temporary exhibition that would be demolished within months. Where did the expertise come from? The official answer is that electrical contractors were hired, systems were installed, Everything proceeded according to standard engineering practices. But what standard practices? Large-scale electrical systems of this magnitude didn't exist yet. There was no playbook, no previous template, no workforce trained in electrical installation at this scale. The St. Louis Fair was supposedly a pioneering demonstration of technology that was still being invented. And yet it worked, flawlessly, uniformly, on a scale that wouldn't be replicated in permanent urban infrastructure for another 30 years. And that's where the phenomenon becomes impossible to ignore. Because it wasn't just St. Louis. The 1893 Chicago World's Fair, 11 years earlier. 120,000 incandescent lamps illuminating 690 acres. The 1901 Pan American Exposition in Buffalo. 350,000 lights transforming the fairgrounds into what visitors called the City of Living Light. The 1915 Panama Pacific Exposition in San Francisco. 500,000 colored lights creating illumination visible from ships 60 miles at sea. Every major exposition between 1893 and 1915. The same pattern: temporary cities, massive scale, comprehensive illumination, then demolition. But it wasn't just America. The 1900 Paris Exposition Universelle, the Palace of Electricity generating 21,000 horsepower to light the entire exhibition. It's powered by systems that Parisian engineers supposedly didn't fully understand, but operated anyway. The 1908 Franco-British Exhibition in London. 120,000 lights transforming Shepherd's Bush into what newspapers called a fairyland beyond description. The 1910 Brussels International Exposition, comprehensive electric lighting throughout. The Grand Palais alone containing 40,000 light bulbs powered by generation facilities built specifically for the temporary fair. Sydney, Melbourne, Barcelona, Turin, Buffalo, Omaha, Portland, Seattle, San Francisco, San Diego. Every major fair, every exhibition, every World's Exposition from roughly 1889 to 1915. The pattern repeats with unsettling precision. Temporary cities built in 18 to 24 months. Comprehensive electrical illumination on scales that permanent cities wouldn't achieve for decades. Then systematic demolition within months of closing. If you're just joining this investigation, I encourage you to look at these photographs yourself. They're not hidden. They're in archives, libraries, historical collections. Night photographs of the world's fairs. Study the uniformity of the light. Consider the scale. Ask yourself, does the official explanation satisfy you? Here's where we encounter what I call the coordination problem. Let's accept, for a moment, the official narrative. That these fairs represented the cutting edge of electrical technology. That they were showcases for the modern age. That the technology, while new, was capable of producing these results. Fine. But that raises an even more troubling question. How did organizers across different continents, different cultures, different nations, all arrive at nearly identical architectural and technological solutions within the same narrow time frame? The White City in Chicago, 1893. Neoclassical architecture, uniform white buildings, comprehensive electric illumination, grand courts and lagoons, all designed by Daniel Burnham's team. The Ivory City in Buffalo, 1901. Nearly identical aesthetic. White buildings, electric spectacle. The same grand scale. The Court of Honor in St. Louis, 1904. The pattern repeats again. The Jewel City in San Francisco, 1915. Again, the same basic template. And it wasn't just architectural style. It was the complete system. The layout, the materials, the lighting infrastructure, the temporary nature, the speed of construction, and most importantly, the comprehensive documentation of the completed buildings, but the curious absence of detailed records about their construction processes. We have thousands of photographs of these finished cities. We have architectural drawings, we have visitor accounts, newspaper reports, official guides describing the wonders of these illuminated palaces. But try to find detailed engineering records of how they built these power systems. Try to locate the training programs that produce thousands of electricians simultaneously across multiple continents. Try to trace the supply chains for the millions of light bulbs, thousands of miles of copper wire, generators, transformers, junction boxes. The evidence suggests something much larger than simple technological progress. And then they disappeared, not gradually, not piece by piece, not repurposed or integrated into existing cities. They were demolished, systematically, completely. The St. Louis Fair, which took tens of thousands of workers and cost over $50 million to construct, equivalent to over $1.5 billion today, was largely demolished between 1904 and 1905. Some buildings burned in suspicious fires. Others were torn down. A handful of structures remain, but the vast majority gone. The same pattern in Chicago, in Buffalo, in San Francisco, in Paris. These weren't primitive wooden structures. Half the photographs show massive palaces, grand exhibition halls, elaborate facades. Many were built with staff, a mixture of plaster, fiber, and cement over steel or iron frames. Some buildings incorporated more permanent materials, but the majority were designed as temporary despite their monumental appearance. And here's where the narrative fractures completely. If you possess the capability to build these magnificent structures, if you had mastered large-scale electrical lighting decades before it became commonplace, if you had coordinated this effort globally across multiple continents, why make it all temporary? Why not build cities that would last? The official answer involves costs, land use, the nature of exhibitions as temporary showcases, economic explanations, practical considerations. And maybe that's sufficient for you, but it wasn't sufficient for me. Because what haunts me most isn't what we're told about these glowing cities. It's what we're not told. Try to find mainstream historical analysis that seriously grapples with the technological discontinuity. Try to find academic papers that question how this level of electrical infrastructure appeared so suddenly, so comprehensively, and then, in terms of public adoption, proceeded so slowly afterward. The St. Louis Fair in 1904 had comprehensive electric lighting throughout 1,200 acres. 20 years later, most American homes still use gas lighting or kerosene lamps. The technology existed, the expertise existed, the supply chains existed. But residential and commercial electrification proceeded at a crawl for decades. Why the gap? If these fairs proved that large-scale electrical systems were feasible, nigh affordable enough for temporary exhibitions, why did permanent implementation take so much longer? The silence is deafening. Not conspiracy silence, not active suppression, just absence. An absence of curiosity about the discontinuity, an absence of serious questioning, an acceptance of the official narrative despite the troubling gaps it contains. Let me show you what else appears in these night photographs. The quality of the illumination itself. Modern electric lighting creates harsh shadows, uneven distribution, hot spots, and dark areas. Early electric lighting was even worse. Crude arc lamps that cast intense localized light but left surrounding areas in relative darkness. But look at the St. Louis Fair photographs carefully. The light appears remarkably uniform, soft, diffused, almost ethereal. It seems to emanate not just from visible fixtures, but from the buildings themselves. Some structures appear to glow, as if the walls were translucent or the material itself luminescent. Now, there are explanations for this. Long photographic exposures could create this effect. The white staff material was specifically chosen to reflect light effectively. Strategic placement of lights, careful architectural planning, reflectors positioned to maximize illumination, all could contribute. Could. But when you see the same quality of illumination in St. Louis, Chicago, Paris, San Francisco, Buffalo, and Brussels, all using supposedly different systems, different architects, different contractors, different technologies, the coincidence becomes harder to dismiss. The deeper I looked, the more I realized I wasn't looking at primitive electrical systems struggling to illuminate temporary exhibitions. I was looking at something that appeared fully formed, sophisticated, comprehensive, not experimental, not developmental, not primitive, mature. This is what keeps me awake at night. Not whether these cities existed. We have photographic proof, not whether they were illuminated. The evidence is overwhelming. But this, where did the knowledge come from? Technology doesn't appear fully formed. It develops through stages, through trial and error, through gradual refinement. The history of electrical lighting should show clear progression from primitive installations to sophisticated systems. And in some ways, it does. Edison's early work, Tesla's contributions, the development of AC power systems. We have that progression documented. But then these fares appear, and the progression jumps. The scale explodes. The sophistication leaps forward. And then, and this is crucial, it leaps backward again. The public infrastructure that follows is less comprehensive, yes, less sophisticated than what was demonstrated at these temporary exhibitions. It's as if someone briefly opened a door to advanced capability, demonstrated it globally in these glowing cities, and then closed the door again, returning to slower, more gradual development. Why? I don't have an answer. I have questions. Many questions. Consider what happened after these fairs closed. The building demolished, burned, repurposed, or left to decay. The detailed technical documentation, sparse or missing. The thousands of workers who built these systems, dispersed, unnamed, largely uninterviewed in any comprehensive way. We have visitor accounts, thousands of them, people describing the beauty, the spectacle, the wonder of these glowing cities. But try to find detailed accounts from the engineers who designed the electrical systems, or try to locate comprehensive records of the power plants, the distribution networks, the maintenance procedures. Fragments exist, enough to construct an official narrative, but not enough to truly understand how it was done. And this pattern, this specific pattern of preservation and omission, repeats across every major fair. We remember the spectacle. We forget the mechanism. We preserve the photographs. We lose the blueprints. We commemorate the achievement. We erase the process. Once you see this pattern, you start seeing it everywhere. Historical records mention other places, other times, where comprehensive illumination appeared in contexts that seem equally anomalous. Ancient accounts of temples that glowed without fire, medieval descriptions of cities that blazed with cold light, Renaissance reports of illuminated structures that defied contemporary technology. Most historians dismiss these as myths, exaggerations, misunderstood natural phenomena. Maybe they're right. But after studying these World's Fair photographs, after grappling with the technological discontinuities, after seeing the pattern of comprehensive illumination followed by systematic erasure, I'm less certain. What if the fairs weren't introducing new technology? What if they were reintroducing old technology? What if the knowledge existed before, was lost, was briefly recovered, and then lost again? I'm not claiming this is true. I'm asking, does the evidence allow for this possibility? So we return to where we began, the 1904 St. Louis World's Fair. A glowing city that blazed for 7 months, then vanished. How was this possible? Not the simple mechanical answer. Electricity, generators, wiring. I understand those components. What I don't understand is the system that produced them so suddenly, so comprehensively, so globally, and then dismantled them so completely. I don't understand how a temporary exhibition in 1904 achieved lighting sophistication that wouldn't become commonplace in permanent cities for another 30 years. I don't understand the coordination across continents, the uniformity of approach, the similar architectural languages, the repeated patterns of construction and destruction. I don't understand the silence, the lack of serious historical inquiry into these discontinuities, the acceptance of an official narrative that leaves so many questions unanswered. And most of all, I don't understand this. If we possess this capability once, the ability to create comprehensive urban illumination, to build monumental structures quickly and efficiently, to coordinate globally on massive projects. Why don't we possess it now? Or do we, and we simply choose not to use it this way? The night photographs remain. They're not hidden, not suppressed. They're in archives, available for anyone who wants to look. Images of a city that blazed like a jewel, that glowed like a dream, that illuminated the darkness with an intensity that contemporaries found miraculous, and then vanished, leaving only the photographs and questions. Questions about what we knew and forgot. Questions about what we built and destroyed. My questions about the knowledge that briefly surfaced in these glowing cities and then receded back into shadow. I don't know what the St. Louis Fair really was. I don't know if it represents lost technology, hidden history, or simply a moment when ambition outpaced economics and impossible things became briefly, beautifully real. But I know this. The official explanation that this was simply an early demonstration of electric lighting is incomplete. It doesn't account for the scale, the coordination, the sophistication, or the erasure. Something else was happening in that glowing city, something we've chosen to forget, or something we've been encouraged not to remember. The photographs preserve the light, but the knowledge that produced it, that remains in darkness. And perhaps that's where it was always meant to stay.